Well, nobody can see me. I'm gonna have to fix that. I seem to be frozen. Welcome to Beyond BMR. I'm your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Join me in Studio B is Tex. Beyond BMR goes beyond the mysteries of the world. We take you on a deep dive into all the rabbit holes. Our guest is Ronald Murphy, aka the Cryptid Guru. He'll be on shortly. If this is your first time here, please subscribe, share us out, hit the thumbs up, and hit the alert bell. You can find us on Bigfoot, Michigan, Rob and Texas Front Porch. Also, you can find us on Odyssey Radio, IR Radio, and wherever podcasts are found. If you like what we have to offer and like to help support, the Super Chat is open. Yes, the Super Chat is open. So, with that being said, I don't know if you guys can hear me, so I'm going to go a little differently here. Working on a fly. I'm going to bring up my guest before I go over the schedule here. So, Tex, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay, well, we might have to fix that. But once again, on Mondays is Texas Front Porch. You can find Tex at 9 o'clock in the East. Now, again, everybody, for your viewing pleasure, we no longer stream on everybody's channels. So Texas Front Porch is on Texas Front Porch. BMR, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, the Blondes and Booze are on the Blondes and Booze. Jason McLean Questions Everything is on that channel. And then, of course, Bob Van Buren with Van Buren Variety is on his channel. Speaking of Bob, on Tuesdays, had a great show today, Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR is at 9 in the East. And now, finishing Tuesdays, Jason McLean does something called Mysterious Library and Untold Radio AM. Go check out Jason. Wednesday, a new show, great show last week on Texas Front Porch, The Diva Dimension with Danielle Diva. That's at 12 Eastern Standard Time, 9 in the Pacific, 10 Mountain. Thursdays is Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob at 1 o'clock in the East. The Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal podcast comes on at 9 o'clock in the East. Then Friday, if you need a little woo with the booze, you got the Blondes, the Booze, and woo at 9 in the East. And, of course, Tex and Danielle Diva on Saturday at 3 o'clock in the East do something called Infamous Minds. Infamous Minds, check out. It's a true crime series. It's fantastic. I shouldn't say it's a series. It's more of a show. So go check out Tex and Miss Diva. And, of course, our buddy Jessica Jones, Space Out Radio, 10 in the East, Saturday and Sunday. Again, you guys can't see me. I might have to try and fix this. So, Tex, why don't you take care of Mr. Murphy? I will be back in about 3 minutes.
No problem.
Thank you.
Me and Ron might let you back in.
That's right.
You might. All right. See you guys in a minute.
We got to keep Rob, though, in our prayers. He's getting some pretty strong weather up there and some tornado warnings. So let's hope there's nothing bad going on.
You know, and I was talking Danielle the other night, and of course, she's up in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They had tornadoes.
They did. Extremely rare.
Yeah. It's like, good grief, what's going on around here?
Well, July 4th, if I'm not mistaken, was the warmest day ever recorded on Earth. So all the average temperatures, from Antarctica to Australia, United States, Canada, Europe, it came out to about 66 degrees. And that's pretty warm, that's taking in all, and we have to remember too, half the earth right now is in winter as well too. Everything, below the equator is in winter. And whenever I think about like the devastation of the ice age, we're talking about temperatures that were just about 10 degrees off of normal to cause a complete global catastrophe. And this isn't really conspiracy theory here. This is just the facts.
Right. Well, and I mean, we're on a cycle.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people, and don't get me wrong, what we do to the atmosphere does not help one bit.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, what we do to everything else. But the earth is on a cycle, and every so often we do go through an ice age, or a warming period. And a lot of people, I think what's funny is a lot of people misunderstand that they think the ice age, it freezes everything. No, not really. It floods everything.
Yeah, right.
And then you get, and then the ice age is actually on the back side of it when the Earth is actually going back to normal. But the weather patterns, man, they can be a fascinating subject to look at, And,
they sure can.
I can remember everybody talks about how hot and everything, and it is. It has been brutal down here in the South, and well, it's been hot everywhere, but across the U.S. But the humidity is what's kicking our butt.
Right.
Good grief! Because I can remember 1980, we had over 31 days of 100 degrees.
No, that's devastating. That's punishing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember hauling hay, and we had to haul hay at night because it was so freaking hot. You just couldn't do it.
Wow. But, I remember as a kid in the 1970s actually asking people for Christmas presents, like asking for a sled.
Yeah. I unfortunately never did.
Yes.
We never had use for a sled.
But times have changed, my friend. But some of the best. What really got me started in the idea of paranormal investigations and cryptozoology was back in the 1970s, because the winters were so bad here in Western Pennsylvania that we had not a lot of things to do, but there was a lot of Bigfoot sightings going on at that particular time. The 70s was the heyday in Western Pennsylvania for high strangeness. Bigfoot sightings, Bigfoot sighted with UFOs, and we have Rob back. Awesome.
It's, and that's something that everybody's been talking about a lot here lately, the whole UFO thing, because it's in the news, of course, and when we talk about that, we automatically start bringing up the whole Bigfoot UFO. Is there a connection here?
Right. The UFO Bigfoot quagmire.
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think. I mean, I know I've heard reports of people seeing Bigfoot getting off a UFO, getting on a UFO, seeing a UFO, then seeing Bigfoot, or vice versa. And I don't think it means that Bigfoot's an alien.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think, if they're going to abduct something interesting, why wouldn't they abduct a Bigfoot?
Mm-hmm.
They're hell more interesting than we are.
And there's another way of looking at this as well, too, is what the witness is perceiving also an extraterrestrial craft, or is it something else entirely?
Right. Hmm. Yeah, because I'm not completely convinced that a lot of what we see is not terrestrial.
Right. Well, the thing is, I did a series for Small Town Monsters, which I was actually very proud of. Seth Breedlove did a pretty good job with it, and it was called Sasquatch Uncovered the Ridge, and that's where I've done the majority of my research for the past 30 years. And we were out there doing some squatching, as they would say. And, whenever it's done for television, it's recorded, and you try to get as many things in as you possibly can. So there's a lot of trolls out there saying, these a-holes have no idea what they're doing. But, we only have about 4 hours to film. So you have to knock on every tree that you see. You got to do the whoops and all that kind of stuff to show kind of what the method is for the typical people that go out there looking for Sasquatch. So instead of deriding us as amateurs, they should have known that we were trying to cover all the bases to show the different techniques used in Bigfoot research. But as we were out there, we were able to get some howls, some vocalizations, let us say, and a couple of strange wood knocks as well. But what really kind of happened, and this is all filmed, and you can see it in episode 2 of this on YouTube. It's free to watch. It was strange light anomalies, some of them appearing as large as basketballs that were weaving in and out of trees, even approaching members of the film crew. And like I said, this was videotape, right? So this was all being recorded. So that's one of those strange times whenever you could say, well, we do have evidence of what was going on. But if I was investigating ghosts, I would say there was orb activity. And if I was investigating UFOs, I would say there was a lot of small craft in the area. And the thing is, like, even if you were like the idea of fairy lights and spook lights or whatever, and if this was around something that was religious, you could say this is a religious experience. Right. So as I get deeper into this, and 30 years of research gets you pretty gosh darn deep anyways, but as I get even deeper into this, I'm seeing that there's a lot of interconnectivity among so many different types of paranormal activity. And I think that we're dealing with a gray area where there might be an interconnectedness with everything that we're talking about.
Hi, everybody. Everybody can see me and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Tex, for getting the show kicked off. And, you mentioned something, Ron, that I wanted to get into a little bit because I asked you last week, what do you want to talk about? And again, when Tex and I and a lot of people in chat, a lot of people listening, I personally, I won't put words in Tex's mouth. I believe everything's connected in some way. And then you brought up an interesting thing, and you just brought it up. You were talking about these ghost lights, spook lights, will-o'-the-wisp. Again, something I'm not 100% familiar with, I must admit. I mean, there's so much to learn. And again, if you can walk us through that, does that have an effect on what we see in the woods? I mean, is that kind of a base, or is that a starting point where a Sasquatch or a dog man can appear out of just by following these other elementals of the woods?
Right. See, that's an awesome question. That's really what the gist of the of this whole notion is regarding what's out there. Are these orbs capable of being vehicles of transportation? And are these the portals that people talking about? Are these the doorways between worlds, between dimensions? Possibly. Or there's another part of this as well too. Are these lights that we're seeing, are these energies which we're witnessing out in the woods, intelligences that's capable of manifesting in themselves into the forms of things that we call Bigfoot and Dogman? See, that's the other side of this as well too. So we really don't know what we're talking about because there's no experts in this. We're just scratching the surface. What we do know is probably for the last 2,000 years, people have been reporting seeing strange lights out there. The pharaohs in Egypt, 7,000 years ago, were reporting strange lights seen in the sky. Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC was reporting strange lights in India. So they've been out there for a while. But as reason starts setting in, Christopher Columbus on his voyage to America reported the St. Elmo's fire, which is this glow around his ship's masts. He also reported seeing a light on the horizon in the Bermuda Triangle, and this was 1492. So all these kind of things are starting to show me that what we're talking about now, all these kind of phenomena that we're talking about, they do not exist in a vacuum. They've always been with us. Now the question is, they've always been with us. They meaning something to us. They've definitely impacted themselves into the way we think and we view the world. So all that being said, what is the nature of these strange lights that we're seeing? And the more I research and the more I witness these things firsthand, and I witnessed them not a lot of times, probably under a handful of times, maybe only 4 times. What I'm starting to gather is that we are dealing with some sort of intelligence that is Earth related, manifested from the Earth, of the Earth itself, if you want to look at a Gaia theory. But whatever is going on out there is intrinsically tied to the land itself.
So that's pretty interesting too. So you think a lot of these things that we experience could be from inner Earth? I mean, what do you think comes from inner Earth?
Well, see, so John Keel, he had a great excuse me, a great definition for these things, and he called them ultra terrestrials. So something that was of the Earth, but still unknown to our comprehension. So I kind of like the idea of the ultra terrestrials, that this would explain fairies, this would explain fallen angels, the jinn, This would explain a myriad of things. It would explain demons. So what we're dealing with here is if we would look at ultra terrestrials, or we would look at the idea of an inner Earth or some sort of Earth-based thing, I think that we have to look at ley lines. I think that we have to look at the idea of power points within the Earth's surface. And when we kind of put all these things together, it kind of adds up that the ancients knew that there were powers inherent within the world. And not only were there powers inherent within the world, if you knew how to approach these powers properly, you could get answers, prophecies or whatever. And it is my opinion that places like Stonehenge are built in memorial of these particular places that the ancients knew were power points. There's a lot of research being done now to show that Stonehenge may indeed have been a place of healing, some sort of hospital where people from Oxford had formed drum circles within the stones, and it shows that there's a certain harmony that's produced onto the human body. So all that taken into account, I'm thinking that we as human beings once knew what was out there. I think that we once knew that there was powers within the Earth, and then we decided to step out of that universal frequency, and now we have memories of what it used to be like, but we're not fully cognizant of the way it used to be. We only have glimmers in our dreams and fantasies and nightmares.
Where do you think some of these things evolve from? I mean, if you talk to the average guy on the street, you talk about inner Earth, you talk about fairies, you talk about all these things, elementals. Where do you think they originated?
Oh, that's a great question. And a lot of people try to answer these questions. Back in the time of King James, in the 1610, 1611, he thought that a lot of these things were fallen angels. He thought a lot of these things were pagan gods that are no longer being honored and revered, and then had to return to the natural world and showed themselves and manifested themselves as these kind of minor deities in the forms of the Fae or whatever. But I think that if we really look at the heart of the matter, we can look at the Greco-Roman tradition, and what they had was the idea of a genus loci, an intelligence of a particular location. So I think that they knew that there were locations within the world where these kind of entities existed. Now, if that is the case, and if it is dependent upon the Earth itself, then we can look at the idea of the Gaia theory. And the Gaia theory is something that really has not been, a lot of people find a little bit of fantastical, but this came up with, this idea, this notion, this theory was come up by, real honest to goodness scientists. But the idea that the Earth is alive, that it's a living, intelligent entity in and of itself, and it can react to stimuluses within it. There's a thought that COVID-19 was actually the Earth's way of eradicating a species on it that was giving it some trouble. So, I mean, there are theories like that. Might be a little bit far flung, but there are theories around that way. But if we do look at the Earth as being a intelligent entity, then that intelligence could produce or manifest images that we are fearful of or whatever, simply to protect itself. So we talk about the idea of not seeing Bigfoot or finding any bodies or not getting any good photographs. One of the best ways for these intelligences to be elusive is to be territorial without being confrontational. So they can use things like infrasound or pheromones or what have you. Or is it possible indeed? Well, I'll have to ask this too, Rob and Tex. Is it possible that these entities themselves are made out of an energy, and that energy can somehow affect the energy within our mind, so it would allow us to see something that's not there?
Well, it's a lot of people we discuss. Also, this has been coming up quite a bit too, and I think this falls in line with what you're saying. And it's happened to us in the field. Some people, you'll have a group, and an event or a phenomenon will happen, and everybody experiences it in a different way, to the point to where they see something different.
Yes.
So, are these things tapping into our subconscious and understanding what our fears are, or what we really want to see? And, where does that lead us? Where does, what kind of entities are we actually dealing with here?
And you actually said that quite eloquently as well too. I think that is the way it should have been summed up. That's like textbook quality right there. So absolutely. So what are we dealing with here? Rene Descartes, famous mathematician, he came up with this idea of the Cartesian theory of the brain, which he stated that outside forces can indeed impact the way we see reality. And as you said, it's very subjective, isn't it? People could be out ghost hunting and somebody sees a full-bodied apparition, the other person sees nothing at all. It's those kind of very personal things that we're dealing with. And as I research more and more, I'm starting to believe that people that have eyewitness encounters almost have to be perceptive of the world around them, and they have to provide a very tangible link to what they're witnessing in order to see it. It's almost as if there's a circuit there, and the thing that's being witnessed has to flip the circuit, and so does the experiencer as well too, in order for that circuit to be complete, and then they can have this kind of interaction. I think that whenever people do experience things, it is almost, and gift is not the right word, but I think it is something that is kind of, there's almost an unwritten contract between what's going on, and it's almost as if it's preordained to happen.
So let's just say you're a researcher. Let's say that you're planning an expedition. You're looking for Bigfoot.
Okay.
And let's say, though, in the case of a lot of us listening today and a lot of people that are in chat that have seen a Bigfoot, I believe that you can see these things more readily than others if you have it. That's just my belief with the people I've spoken with. Now, however, we're talking about your subconscious. And if you're out there, do you think, though, that if you're in the field, you can actually manifest something? Now, what Tex's point, what alluded to earlier, are we sometimes manifesting these things? However, what we're manifesting is what we think we're seeing.
Yeah. Again, you guys are very, very good at what you do. So I like to look at, because as I said, these things do not exist in a vacuum. So if you look at the idea of intelligence and the idea of magic within the Renaissance period, especially in Western Europe, the idea of magic was that you conjure what is inside of you. And once that image, that spell, that particular, what you're trying to get across, let us say, what you're trying to manifest, is manifested first within you and then projected onto the world around you. Okay, that's the idea of magic going back, 600 years or so. But if you look at the Eastern traditions as well, too, the idea of the tulpa is out there, which is a mind form, that if enough people think about something, that thought can take tangible, physical, corporeal shape. I'm not sure if I would go that far, but I'm saying that one of the things that's most overlooked in the field of cryptozoology and the paranormal is the idea of how powerful the human mind is. I've spoke to many people, all very lucid people, all very sober people. I'm convinced that none of these people were lying to me, and they were seeing things that simply should not exist. Not only things that should not exist, but things that are physically incapable of existing. I talked to a couple of people that were out, riding their quads, and they went around a corner and they see a large ape-like creature before them, about 12 feet tall, covered in hair. And the creature did not walk away. What happened was a great set of wings open up and it flies off. Now, see, a creature that size should not be able to do that. The physics alone would require wingspans of something like 30 or 40 feet. So what's going on here? Even like when we talk about the Mothman, what we're talking about is people are seeing things that are physically impossible to exist, or at least to function within the world that we know. And that being said, these people are either lying or they're seeing something that's capable of functioning on another level. So we're talking about something ethereal. We're talking about something that is transcendent, more so than physically in this world at all times.
It's I've been kind of tinkering with a new theory on the 411 cases, and how cryptids are involved, and how the shape shifting comes into play. And it's completely out of the box. I've never heard it mentioned before. And you know what? I'd like to get your take on it, because it falls along these lines.
It does.
It does. What if what we're seeing here with, and I'm not saying it's responsible for all the phenomena at all, but a portion of it. And I do think cryptids are responsible for a portion of it. But what if, because people find clothes that are neatly folded.
Mm-hmm.
They find bodies that are miles from places where they should have been, in terrain that they couldn't have traversed. Mm-hmm. They find bodies that were there in areas that's already been searched.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What if these people shape shifted, but it was only for either a short period of time, and during the shift they went to these, they were able to traverse this territory that they were in, and then when they shifted back, they couldn't stand the elements and they died there.
Mm-hmm.
Or what if, in the case of finding the clothes and stuff, what if they shape shifted and they knew they were going to shape shift and they didn't turn back, and that's where we're getting the dog man.
Again, all this stuff already has a question mark attached to it. So we might as well throw all the logs on the fire and see what comes up. So as I think about the idea of the 411, we know that something's going on out there, right? We know it because real honest to goodness people are disappearing, right?
Right.
And the other thing that's so fascinating about this is sometimes people will even eyewitness these people out there. They see these people who are presumably lost, and they don't believe that they're lost because they can see them, and they're well within range of getting rescued, but they're acting erratically, like they have no idea where they are, or maybe even more so than not only having an idea where they are, maybe they're not even within our reality at that time. Their perception of reality seems to have shifted so much that they are now going to die in the elements while there's people walking 100 yards away from them, right? Something is going on more so than an animal attack or a snake bite or exposure or something like that. There's something more going on there. And like you said, Tex, not every single case, but there's enough tantalizing cases out there. One of the cases that I covered in my book on the Chestnut Ridge, and the Chestnut Ridge right now is right outside of my window. I can look out my window and see it. So, they call it a ridge because, it is an inclined plane up there. It's not very tall. The highest point is about 3,200 feet. So it's not a huge ridge. It's a little foothill in the mountains of the world. But, we're, 5 miles away from a Walmart or whatever. But there was a doctor of education and her family that were hiking up there several years ago. And guess what? They got lost. How can you get lost on something? All you do is go downhill. That's all you have to do. Right. That's how you solve this. But there was somebody up there that was college educated that was awarded the doctorate degree, and she could not find her way off of the mountain because she was so disoriented by what the environment around her, right? So she was up there with her husband and her kids, and nobody could find their way out. That doesn't happen, guys. I mean, no matter what, Boy Scouts 101 is you follow a river or whatever down the hill, and all you have to do is just walk straight down. Actually, where they were at, you could actually see the lights of the town from where they're at. So there was something wrong with their reality whenever they were up there. And the only thing that I can suggest, and again, Tex, these are the kind of speculations that we have to come up with. The only thing that I can suggest is her reality up there at that particular time was far different than our reality when we go up there.
Well, yeah, and I think that's where we have to start talking about other dimensions, portholes, and also, some of these people. What if there was these evil spirits or nefarious spirits or tricksters, however you want to look at it, which the Fae are known for doing this,
Sure.
leading people astray.
The spook lights, the spook lights. That was one of the things that you'd be afraid if you were in England, 300 years ago. Don't go into the swamps because the fairy lights would lead you to your death.
Exactly. Yep. I mean, what if that's, again, not all the cases, but because I think absolutely some of these cases are just people being stupid.
People being knuckleheads, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Actually, that probably accounts for most of it, but but I do think there is a supernatural, paranormal aspect to what's going on out there, but I just can't figure out what it is. But then again, on the flip side of the coin, I'm like you. I don't think there's one thing that we can nail it down to. I think just like out there doing research, is, we're out there looking for cryptids, we're out there looking for ghosts, and we run into all these different phenomenon, looking, that are seemingly attracted to each other for some reason, but we don't, because for a long time, people were. You see a dark shadow out in the woods, and it goes into the Bigfoot box. People hear a whistle or a laugh that goes into the Bigfoot box. All these phenomena go into the Bigfoot box. And what we've been trying to do is unpack that box, because you're not just dealing with when you're out there, brush popping, and you're running all this things that you can't explain. You're not running into a single phenomenon. You're dealing with a lot.
Preach up, brother. Preach
a lot. So I don't know. And then you get into the whole abduction theory. I don't, time loss. I mean, it boggles the mind, and causes crazy people like me to sit there and question their own sanity because they've experienced this stuff,
And that would have been synonymous with a fairy case too, if you would have counted with fairies. The idea of the loss of time or even abductions was something that was commonplace. That was just part of the phenomenon. And the idea of a changeling as well too, which is the abduction of a human being and replacing it with a replicant that was far superior, far inferior to the person that was taken, is also very common. And I think it was around 1865, whenever there was a gentleman over in Ireland that actually killed his wife in front of his friends because she left for about a week and came back disoriented. He didn't know, he didn't really recognize who she was, and she seemed far different. So in front of his friends, he set her on fire and killed her. And the judge found out that he did indeed have exonerating circumstances regarding this homicide, and he was sentenced to like 7 years or something like that. And actually, he got out of jail a lot sooner. I think he served about 3 years, and he moved to America of all places. Yeah.
Wow. In the last 4 minutes, we've talked about 8 different theories, 5 different subjects, and that's why I love what I do. This is why Tex loves what he does, and certainly you, Ron, and everybody listening. I got to just throw one more banana out there because you mentioned, I have to circle back real quick. You talked about the fallen angels, the fallen 200 cast out of heaven, mated with human women, became Nephilim. Now, I believe that a lot of people say, and I don't subscribe to this theory with Bigfoot being Nephilim. That's just me. I could be right, could be wrong. I don't know. We're not experts. However, don't you think that bloodline is kind of diluted? But what I will ask, though, there probably is DNA out there. And do you think that is just a part of Mother Nature? And that's where a lot of these elementals and things can drive and get their energy from? And it could be for good or bad intentions?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think that's the case. In order to be able to draw power, you mean, from the earth itself, in order to do that? Absolutely. And of course, this is off subject, but I spoke with the cryptid huntress the other day about vampires, and there are some versions of vampires that actually drain the energy out of the natural world in order to give themselves power. If you look at the idea of giants or the Nephilim or even the Anunnaki, I mean, if you look at the Anunnaki, not under the guise that they are extraterrestrials, but let's just put them down as Mesopotamian gods for a second, if we will. I mean, if we're looking at this purely from an anthropological point of view, we see that these entities are indeed part of the world, right? These are wind gods. These are storm gods. These are all creatures. These are all a pantheon that derives from the elements themselves. So that's kind of interesting when we talk about fairies and about the world around us and about drawing power from the world. All these things did that. We just have to look at the record that's been out there looking at us in the face for the past 5,000 years.
And I think when you talk about drawing energy, there's a reason that most of the time, actually, I've been out in the field, and if we get stormy weather, we're going to have activity.
Sure.
And it's going to be ramped up.
Yep.
We camped through tornado warnings and horrible storms one time, and the next night was just off the freaking chain.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that is exactly what happens, is that the energy builds up in, I don't know if it's the air, certain stones, or whatever, but there's definitely an energy transfer there. Because you can go up. A lot of times you have this beautiful freaking weather for a long period of time, and the activity tends to dip. There's, you have to start seeing a correlation there.
Yeah, it's like when we first talked at the very outset of the show about the 1970s and the weather was so bad, the winter was so bad. There's something going on that's correlation. And right, so we talk about energy, and there's indeed energy in thunderstorms. If you look at, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the idea of giving life itself is derived from the elements, and the reason why elementals are called elementals because they are believed to be intelligences within the natural world. Paracelsus, a great alchemist from the late 1500s, he believed that in order to find out the secrets to the world around us is to figure out the intelligence that exists within the environment and somehow communing with that intelligence or getting to know that intelligence. So his idea of the philosopher's stone, in order to take base metals and turn them into gold or some sort of precious metal, was to somehow have a dialogue with the elements in order to find out how we go about doing these things. I'm a firm believer that the answer to everything that harms us, its antidote is out there in the world. I think that we live, I'm a religious guy as well too, but I definitely believe that our world is a perfectly formed terrarium, if you will, and everything that is out there that kind of grew in this world that harms us, like cancer and things, I believe that the earth itself also produces the things that can cure us. And if we look at one of the great pieces of human literature, maybe the first piece of human literature, we have the Epic of Gilgamesh, where that is what the hero is looking for. He's looking for this flower that has the possibility of giving us eternal life, and he loses it at the end. And I think that we talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh that goes back to Sumeria, some around 5200 BC, that we knew at one time. I think that we have, and this is another thing, Rob, another topic that we'll cover. I think that we do have a base of lost knowledge out there as well, too. I think what our forefathers had known whenever they were building the pyramids, whenever they were building Stonehenge, I think a lot of that knowledge that they had is no longer with us. It is erased from our human memory. But I certainly believe that we as human beings have had unbelievable technology at our disposal, and we've had knowledge of things that we could not possibly fathom, and that has all been lost to history as well.
I don't have a problem whatsoever going down that path, because if there can be dead or lost languages, there's damn sure lost technology.
Well, sure. And I'm also a firm believer that there was a universal universal language. I do believe that at one time we did have one shared language. We may even have had a shared religion, because there's so many different aspects of world religions within all the competing religions out there. So I think that we as humans, we as humanity, we're tied together so much, so much better in the past, before war and before color came to mean anything, or before nationalities existed. I think that we were integrated into a humanity that was able to teach and learn from the environment and really grew and prospered. But as we become more and more civilized, and we start putting up fences and we start putting up gates, it now becomes us versus them. And the people that we were learning with and residing with out in the woods now become our enemies. And then whenever that becomes part of who we are as the human race, then all the other good altruistic things that we have is lost in the dust.
Yeah. And gosh, such a great show, such great ideas. And thank you, Ronald Murphy, the Cryptid Guru, joining us on Beyond BMR. I have to bring this up. Now, you guys can take this for a grain of salt. People might. I've been watching the Skinwalker Ranch series on Netflix. I'm in number 8, whatever, series 8. And the only reason I bring up this is because we all know that for the past 20, 30 years, it's been investigated, it's been researched. But we're talking about energy. We're talking about inner earth. So last night I was watching it, and they discovered that they think that there was just energy in the ground, but the energy was the form of a current or electricity. And they had stuck a rod in the ground. They ran a wire. They took a flashlight without a battery in it. And you know what, you guys? The battery turned on. They lit the battery from the earth, from the ground. I was watching that. And again, I'm not going to give you my opinion on Skinwalker Ranch or this series. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it's entertaining. But when I seen that, and you guys know about all of these things that are going on there, if you follow, there's so much phenomenon there. UFOs in particularly, all the energy that seems to flow from this place. The mesas glow at night. And when I seen that, I was like, man, they either pulled off a very good trick, or that is really something that's going on over there. And we're just discussing all this energy. And you know what? I'm going to say that I'm 60-40 that did happen.
Well, that's. I don't think that's ever even out of the box, because when you start talking about that, you start talking about Tesla, and look at these Tesla coils. There's some Tesla coils right outside of Waco, and they're huge, and there's a lot of questions on why they were built and who built, or not who built them, but you can't get on that property. They won't even talk to you. But what's strange is they're built on top of a aquifer. And if you go back and you look at Tesla's history and research, he equates that. And what I'm wondering is, were these aquifers what he was thinking about using for this wireless electricity that he talked about? Because we all know moving water generates static electricity.
Absolutely. And also water is one of the fundamental elements whenever you look at ghostly hauntings as well.
Right. Right.
So I think
energy,
that's exactly. So Tesla's an interesting figure, and I'm so glad you brought him up, because we don't have much time left, but at least we'll be able to discuss Tesla for a little bit, because I think it's worthy to talk about him, especially when we're talking about lost knowledge and we're talking about the world itself as having, this power and this energy in it. So 2 things. So Tesla wanted to produce an electrical source that was free to the public, right? He didn't want to get any money off of this hip. So JP Morgan, back in the day, went to Tesla and he said, I really enjoy your work. How do we charge people for this? And Tesla looked at him and said, well, we're not charging anybody. This is for the people. And JP Morgan then took his checkbook to, Edison, right? So that's the light bulb. So history is made on who has the greatest financial backing. So because Tesla was being a humanitarian, we thought we can't do this. So now we have the Edison bulb instead of the Tesla light. But I was talking to some researchers probably about 10 years ago. This is not my research. This is their research. But they were talking about a man in New Jersey that had a Tesla coil in his house. And the gentleman fired it up. It was like up in his attic area. He fired the thing up, just an amateur type of thing doing it. And after he fired it up, he went downstairs. And within a few minutes, he could hear footsteps walking around upstairs where the Tesla coil was, as if that produced some sort of gateway to allow something in. What is even more curious about this case is the next day he gets a knock on the door by the government who takes the Tesla coil away from him. Yeah. Yep. So I think that we are dealing with this, and I think that Tesla knew that the Earth had this huge amount of energy that could be harnessed and used, not quite domesticated, but at least, able to, at least we'll be able to contend with it. Let's put it that way. Right. And he knew these secrets. I think a lot of these secrets that he knew, like, we talk about the idea of lost intelligences. I think that might have come from that kind of wellspring. And he was ridiculed because he didn't want to make any money off of it. And now people that are using his technology are either having it taken away from them or they're having some paranormal activity going along with it.
Right. I totally agree with you. I mean, it's fascinating when you get into that because it explains a lot for a lot of theories, not just the paranormal, but it certainly explains a lot of that.
Sure. And most certainly does. Yeah. And if it doesn't explain it outright, at least it can give it credence on how it could be possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that could also, you could also be talking about, that's why we have portals that, open up randomly.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Exactly right.
Because aquifers they will change. They will change. And then you throw the ley lines on top of that, and the ley lines shift. What maybe you have a perfect storm in a ley line lining up with an aquifer.
That's right. Or maybe a tectonic plate shifts, and that produces that needed spark. That is the catalyst for producing these things.
I mean, what's one of the greatest ways to produce static electricity? Rub your feet on the carpet.
That's right.
That's happen? Right. I mean, that's what's happening on, when tectonic plates shift, they're rubbing together. That creates energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I missed most of that part. I'm sorry, you guys, but we got like a tornado warning out here now, but missing that. But you know what? Kind of like I'm gathering what you guys are saying. Energy, any sort of energy. I think Tex was talking about portals. I think that's what a portal is, right? That's some sort of energy from wherever. The key is what source is the energy coming from to open these portals, right?
That's right.
That leads to the different dimensions or the planes or whatever.
And I don't think they necessarily have to open up to a different dimension to shift reality. It could very well be.
Yeah.
We're always talking about infrasound and EMF. And the thing about it is, I know people love to jump on the infrasound train. And I get that. But it will do a lot of weird stuff. And it gets, accredited Bigfoot or a lot of cryptids. But if we took it if you look at the symptoms from from high levels of EMF versus infrasound, a lot of it mirrors each other. So if you step into an area, and it could also explain a lot when some people have an experience and some people don't, and they're right there next to each other, because it affects people differently.
That's right.
So that could
That's
be
right.
something else we're dealing with. You went in where a ley lines crossing happening that day, and or an aquifer or whatever, the energy just right. EMF levels go up. There's a couple of people and they experience different things, or one experienced something, and the other one, like you said, nothing at all.
I agree totally.
So, Ron, we're coming up on the 5-minute break. You got another 20 minutes in you, or do you have to bid us adieu? Because I know you.
Yeah, unfortunately, guys, and all your listeners, I want to tell you too, I would gladly come back on at a moment's notice. I actually wrote this down for being on tomorrow. I was anxious to be here with you guys, so unfortunately, I am going to have to bid you guys a quick adieu here to get going here. I have work early in the morning, but I had a blast here, and I'm hoping you're okay there, Rob. I'm going to keep you in my prayers tonight. Hopefully the storm blows over pretty soon.
Yeah, it's just a warning, or not a warning, it's a watch. So, but it's, I'm sick of talking about my internet and my weather here in Michigan. It's been the weirdest. It's been the weirdest winter, spring, and summer. I don't even have tomatoes in my garden. I was bitching earlier about how my garden's crappy this year.
Yes.
It's no good to complain about it, right? You got to move on and wait till next year. But I really, anywhere we can find you, you got really quick before we let you go. We got about 45 seconds.
Yeah, sure. I'll be in I'll be in Gettysburg this coming weekend. I'll be talking about vampires on Saturday. The following week, I'll be at the Kecksburg UFO Festival, and then I'll be at other places around Pennsylvania throughout the month of August and September. So I'll be around. Check out my books at Amazon. Ronald L. Murphy Jr. at Amazon. .com. And guys, again, a complete pleasure to be here. I wish that we could have won the entire time, but I enjoyed this 1 hour that I got to spend with you so much.
I enjoyed it too. We'll definitely have you back on either this show or over on Texas Front Porch. I appreciate what you do, Ron. I look forward to meeting you in person at one of these get-togethers. We're going to take the 5-minute break. Tex and I will be back for the last half hour or so and just kick it. With that being said, thanks to Sugar Britches and thanks to Be Kind for your awesome super chats. Thanks once again to Ronald Murphy. Dave Scott coined him the Cryptid Guru. We'll see you next time. We'll be back at 5.
We'll
Take
see
care,
you.
Ron.
Bye-bye, guys.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Beyond BMR. Great guests. We had Ronald Murphy, the Cryptid Guru. He could only spend an hour with us. He had the dates confused. He thought we were on Wednesday, but there's so much to unpack in that show for the first hour. Me and Tex will probably go over a little bit here in a second when I pull them up. Everybody, thank you. Thanks once again for Sugar, Britches, Super Chat, and Be Kinds. It's a great way to help support the show and what we do here for you guys 6 days a week. So thank you for that. Mondays, Texas Front Porch. Subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. It's 9 o'clock in the East. Tuesday, Van Buren Variety. Please subscribe to him. He comes on at 8 in the East. Beyond BMR, this show, 9 in the East, myself and Tex. Jason's still doing that thing over there called Mysterious Library on Untold Radio AM. Go check out Jason and also subscribe to Jason McLean. Questions everything. Jason does not do the live shows. However, he's got some great videos. He's more of a video format now. Jason puts out a couple a week. If you don't know about that, he's not gone anywhere. He's just doing a video format. Jason's got some great stuff solo and sometimes with Donnie Cho. Go check out Jason. Wednesday, debuted last Wednesday, The Diva Dimension with Danielle Diva. Check her out. It's found on Texas Front Porch. That is at 12 o'clock in the East. Thursday, brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, back with me and Krista. That's at 1 in the East. The Blondes, the Booze, the Paranormal Podcast. Again, subscribe to them. 9 o'clock in the East. If you want a little more woo with the Blondes and the Booze, well, they do the woo on Friday at 9 in the East. Saturdays, Tex, Danielle Diva, if you're into true crime, Infamous Minds. Infamous Minds. It's 3 o'clock in the East. They're really doing a fabulous job over there. If you're into true crime, that's the place to be at 3 o'clock. And again, all these shows are live. Well, that one is not, but hey, everything is free in the archives. So subscribe to the channels, go to the archives. A lot of great content we put out. And I always have to mention my buddy JJ, Jessica Jones. You can catch her on Space Out Radio. Saturday, Sunday, 10 in the East. She is the Cryptid Huntress. Thanks for that. And with that being said, I'm going to bring up Tex before this tornado hits. Just kidding. I don't think it's hitting. The wind's already died down. So 3, 2, 1, my man Tex.
I am.
Hey,
here.
he is there. You know, Tex, we talked about so much in an hour. There's like 90 things we went over. It's almost like unfair. You got to take one topic and just do it because, God, that was a lot to unpack. We covered a lot. For those of you just joining us, we had Ronald Murphy, the Cryptid Guru, on. He can only spend the first hour with us and go back and check out the replay of the show because a lot of great information for everybody to go over. I appreciate each and every one of you for coming on in. And so Tex, yeah, you know, real briefly, why don't you give me your quick synopsis and all that? It's you know, it's a lot.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's a like you said, it's a lot to unpack, and I don't think honestly that we're ever going to unpack all of it.
No.
But I do think everything's connected, but I don't think it's connected in the way some people believe it is. My opinion is that it's connected by and maybe some do have this opinion. I think it's all connected by energy that triggers all these different phenomena. And I would have, you know, when he does come back, and he will be back with either here or on the porch, we got to dig into that a little bit more because
Yeah.
we just scratched the surface on tonight. That's for sure.
Yeah, you know, I know that we all concentrate a lot on, you know, Bigfoot and Dogman and cryptids, but you know, the the smarter I guess, or the more knowledge I gain with having shows like this and talking to all these fantastic guests. You know, for 2 years for me. I mean, I had my encounter 5 years ago, but the last 2 years I've been really diving into it. And of course, we had the paranormal group, and now my eyes are open to different things. When we had Jessica, open my eyes to things, and of course, a lot of my other great friends out there, like Duke's out there, and yourself, and another just great researchers. Sometimes you got to sit back and think it's not all just Bigfoot and Dogman, because a lot of these things are derived from other forces, right? And other, like we're talking about the elementals. Elementals are basically an energy force in the field, right? In the woods, right?
Right.
That a lot of these attractions they come to. And I know that we were, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and the problem is we don't know half the time what we're dealing with.
Yeah, right.
You know, but
and again, I think if you see a Bigfoot, I mean a Bigfoot, not a shadow. I'm not talking about a shadow. I'm not talking about something that you're seeing through this half camouflage, or it's got the what's that other what's cloaking, you know. I mean, I refer back, what I seen was an animal or humanoid, as I always say, flesh and blood, right? But then did that weird stuff to me, and I'm like, until this day, I'm like, wow, you know. And I know a lot of people, you know, we see the Bigfoot crossing the road. When you see a physical object or a physical being, okay, yeah, I get it. But we talk to so many people that have so many different experiences, you just can't pinpoint it to one thing, right? And I don't think we ever will do. I don't think we ever will.
And it's like, you know, us and Ron were talking about, just because one person's having this certain experience and somebody else is having a different one doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't the same thing that triggered it. You know,
Yeah.
So we just interpret it a different way.
And it's just like, people talk about, I've talked about it, you've talked about it. I might be able to see something in the woods or hell in my house,
Right.
and I see it, and the person next to me can't see it, right? I
Yep.
mean, what's that? I mean, again, what is that all about? I know that I talked a long time ago with certain people. They say once you see something, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be paranormal, it could be a cryptid. They always, I don't like using that term, Mark. It just seems like it's just such a term that I don't want to go in that direction with. But I think that they talk again about vibrations and
Right.
frequencies. I think the people that are researching and come across these things, these beings, and some of these paranormal forces, I do believe that if you see something at least once, you can see things that others perhaps cannot. And again, it gets into that third eye theory, right?
Well, and I
Might be
don't
part of
necessarily,
it, not
I
all
don't
of
know.
it.
Well, and I don't necessarily hold with the whole being Mark thing.
Yeah.
I just think if you have an experience, it opens your mind, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of times it is subconscious, and you're able to pick up on other stuff going on that you weren't aware of or you just ignored or wrote off. But when you have that one experience, you catch yourself going, well.
Yeah.
And it's like when you see a Sasquatch or you see a dog man, you're looking for, and let's say you're an avid deer hunter, and you used to go out in the woods, you're looking for deer. Well, if you see something like a cryptid, in the back of your mind, you're looking for the other stuff too. So I think you're more apt to see it.
Yep.
But
And I think that's a good point because, my brother, avid hunter, been doing it for over 20 years. And then when I got to talk, we talk actually quite often now, especially when he goes now into the woods hunting in the fall. He will send me texts, then he'll send me pictures.
yep,
Hey, Rob, what do you think this is, man? He'll show me a broken branch 3 inches in diameter that's about 8 foot up that is snapped. And it's just hanging, it's twisted. He goes,
right,
Rob, that don't look like Mother Nature did that. It doesn't look like there was a tornado did not rip through here because it's
right,
fresh. It's not, and again, a lot of people will say a broken branch. A lot of broken branches are from snowfall, especially where I live, right? But the
right,
ones that are fresh, that you can actually, that they're sticky, and it's just something a human being didn't do, and it certainly wasn't done by the weather.
right,
It makes you wonder. So he's always now he's in the field when he's kind of looking with the head on a swivel, and that's because of my encounter. How many times have hunters been in the field and have probably looked right at a Sasquatch and didn't even see it?
right, exactly. And that's and see, when I talk to these people, well, I've been hunting all my life. How come I've never
Yeah,
seen one? That's one of the first questions you get. Well, were you looking for them? No, you were looking for deer, or you were looking for pigs, or you were looking for this. Um, it's your brother's a perfect example of
yeah,
what we were talking about. He is now, and he haven't. Well, he may have had an experience when his deer got taken, but
yes, right, yeah,
um, but he is now, thanks to you, he's now open to, and he's noticing stuff that he
yeah.
never noticed before, never even questioned.
No,
So
never even
there you
thought
go.
about it whatsoever. Not one iota.
Right. So I mean, it's. I think it just opens a whole new window to the world to you, is what I think.
And I do think too that a lot of people, thanks to shows like yours, mine, and all the other people that do shows, and I think a lot of more people, the more reports you get, you find a lot of commonalities. And I think a lot of people are turning that skeptic side. I mean, it's our community that we're in. I get it, but I think that a
Right.
lot of people, the more they just happen to meander out and happen to find one of these shows and listen, it's going to take more than one show for somebody to go, oh yeah, you're still full of bunk. But if you continue to listen what people have to say, all this stuff, I always say the data, a lot of these things are repetitive things that certainly is not made up, right? It's not just derived out of thin air.
And what I'm running across is people that you would now in public, they're going to deny any existence of the paranormal or supernatural or anything. But if you have a private conversation and they feel comfortable, I'm finding that a lot of these doctors and especially people in the medical field, the psychological field, a lot of these doctors actually are open to the paranormal and that side of things, and it's really surprising. Well, it looks like BMR has frozen up.
Yeah, can you hear me though?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I guess again, you know what, Tex, man, I'm sick and tired of talking about this. At least you can hear me. And we got 15 more minutes, so I'm not gonna shut it down and redo it. At least my hands covering my mouth. I mean, I don't look totally stupid there. But yeah,
well, you look
the
like
weather,
one of the monkeys. Hear no,
you know,
hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
you know, it's just ridiculous. The wind blows, right, you guys, and good old BMR is a problem because I'm done talking about it. It's just something that I guess I got to move to Texas. I don't know. Yeah, Duke says I'm frozen in shock. Yeah,
Yeah.
there we go.
You were so taken aback by my theory that
Yeah, I was like,
you
oh,
couldn't
not
believe it.
again. No, we talking about mind speak again, Tex.
Well, that may be what you're doing. We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I'm not talking to nobody.
Or are
I was,
you just polishing up your ventriloquist act? Is that what you're doing?
yeah, well, maybe,
Because I don't see your lips moving.
Yeah, they're not. I'm doing pretty good at that. I could make a couple
Yeah.
bucks at the bar, the circus when it comes to town.
There you go. There you go.
It must be,
So-
I got this new backdrop up there. It looks pretty
Right,
sweet, I guess, so. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Everybody can admire your purple bandana. I love the purple bandana, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. I just got that the other day. Well, I never put it on. I've had it for a little while.
Well,
I didn't know
the college team that I root for is TCU.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. I think I owe you a steak dinner on that one, don't I?
Yeah. Seems that does ring a bell.
I shouldn't have brought it up.
Oh, Lord.
Well, when I come down there to Texas, I mean, it's going to have to be when we got a few days, right? Maybe not a conference, and I got to hang out with you. And now, you do have something going on, and I think, I won't say. I don't know if it's a private thing or not, but September.
No, as far as I know, it's not. I mean,
oh, okay, I didn't know.
Yeah. Of course, I've had a few things going here lately. Of course, I was featured in the recent
let's talk.
Dogman Triangle. Werewolves in the Lone Star State documentary by Small Town Monsters that just came out, and that's if you want to watch it, folks, it's free on Tubi. You can go watch it. Aside from me being in it, was great.
That was with Small Town Monsters, correct?
I've got let's see. I was supposed to be in Iowa this last week, but that didn't work out. But I did get to be on the show when they were doing some investigating. That was pretty cool. Got to see a shadow walk across the screen, and if you didn't catch that show on the Blondes and Booze, go check that out, because I mean, there was like a shadow. I say I'm doing this, but the shadow was about maybe 18 inches tall, and I saw it twice live. So it was thanks, Duke. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Of course, we had the Alabama conference, which we're already getting ramped up for next year. We're already having conversations about it. We're going to be a lot more involved in it next year, which I'm really excited about. Anita was good enough to, let us lend a hand in more next year. Oh, by the way, folks, Lanita, not Anita, but Lanita, has been very sick in the hospital, so she needs your prayers, folks. So please send that out. There's a lot of people in our little community here that they've been hitting a rough patch. So just do a blanket prayer for everybody, because I've been people been reaching out to me, and a lot of people having some issues. I don't know what's going on out there. The chakras aren't lining up or something, but we got the Dogman Conference coming up in September down here in my hometown, Fort Worth, Texas, and I will be speaking. The Blondes are going to be there, and Jason will be there. Bob will be there. Donnie Cho's talking about coming down. And it sounds like Danielle Diva will be there also. So really looking forward to that. Really looking forward to that. Thank you, Sherry. But yeah, it's we've been doing this, and Duke, I got to get you on the show, man. We've been talking about all this, because I want your opinion on this stuff. I love your take on stuff about the whole Dogman, werewolf conundrum, skinwalker, because man, it's hard not to think it's just all one convoluted mess. The more I think about it, the more I go back and forth about it. I just can't nail down, and I don't know that we ever will. I know there's a lot of people who have different thoughts on it, but it's been had a lot of great guests. And if y'all haven't watched those shows, go back and watch them. But it's and yes, I'm shamelessly plugging my own channel on Rob's. As y'all may or may not know, we are no longer allowed to simulcast on each other's channels. YouTube saw fit to demonetize the front porch for 60 freaking days, guys. 60 days. Oh, Lord. And Rob is here to save the day.
Yeah, well, hopefully I can make the next 8 minutes. I'm not going to even bother talking about my disgust. Nobody wants to hear it, but I don't know. Again, weather, whatever. I need fiber optics.
But the thing about we're having a weird weather year this year. We really are.
Mm-hmm.
Because me and Danielle were even talking about the heat wave that the whole United States is experiencing. And I don't know if y'all heard about all the freaking shootings going on over 4th of July weekend. It was the most shootings ever on 4th of July weekend across the United States.
No, I did not.
20 people were killed in different cities and 126 people wounded in different mass shootings. It was just insane. But we think it part of it may be the heat wave, because the heat affects you psychologically.
Oh, for people going nuts. Yeah, I can see. I don't have the statistics of crime versus the heat or the cold, but the winter versus summer. But I'm sure that plays into it. And I was getting something. I did read something on the news. People, we had this pollution going on with we had fires in Canada, and every morning I would wake up and I could smell a hint of smoke. And I was looking down my street, and it wasn't fog; it was actually smoke vapor, right, from Canada. So a lot of people were complaining about their internet having problems. But again, with the technology the way it is, you think, and I don't know, my lines are all above ground. I don't think that has anything to do with it. I just think that the cable companies, internet services, they're falling back on that, as a scapegoat, I think. But you're right about the crazy weather. It does affect people. I agree 100% with that.
It definitely does. It's because okay, so when police are interrogating somebody, they'll turn the temperature down in the room to make the individual uncomfortable. But it doesn't make them agitated. It just makes them uncomfortable. That's why a lot of times if you see these police interviews, you see people bundled up in blankets or huddled like this because they keep it freaking cold in there.
Yeah.
And that's just to make them uncomfortable, because it's when you've got somebody that's already, they chip away at your psychology,
psyche.
Yeah, it's and there's been experiments ran. If you turn the heat up, they'll have a group of people in a room, and if you gradually turn the heat up, you'll see the agitation level go up and up and up, and they'll start getting more aggressive with each other. It's really weird, but it's kind of a cool phenomenon. But and I don't blame. But I hate the heat. I've lived in Texas all my life. I hate the heat. I'm done with it. I'm ready to go somewhere cooler.
I like 80 degrees with about 30% humidity. Perfect for me. Now, where you live, 98, 105, 110. I got a buddy that lives in Austin, and the dude says he don't go outside. He has a pool. When he goes outside, he directly goes into the pool. He can't even see. I like the outside. I like the sun. I like to hang outside, barbecue, have some people over. But when you're just sitting there dripping sweat in the shade, that is just not fun.
Well, it is. The humidity level down here, along with the heat, because we've been seeing a lot of triple digits down here, and the humidity level is up around 80-85%. And when you step out of the shower and you're already sweating, that's bad.
Oh, that's dude. And that's with your AC running, probably.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I can't imagine your electric bill in the summer. Well, yeah, in the dog days of summer, I should say.
Yeah, it's we're predicted to hit the half century mark on it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I can't complain there. Can't imagine that. Now our water bill, of course, goes through the roof in the summer because everybody's, don't want your. Do you even have grass where you live, Tex? You gotta show me a picture of your lawn. Like, you have a sprinkler system.
My lawn's green, okay. but that's because we got the grasses down here that are used to, they're acclimated to the weather. But and don't get me wrong, if they don't get water, it'll burn up too. But they thrive on a lot less water than some do. But yeah, it's the humidity levels. It's been like living in freaking Houston up here in Fort Worth, and it's normally not that bad. But, yeah. It gets hot, but normally the humidity levels are not what they have been, and that's what makes it rough. When people say, "Oh, it's a dry heat somewhere," it's a joke, but that's a big difference. It's a big difference. Like you were saying, it can be hot in your area, but you got 30% humidity, you know. But I will say this, the humidity levels when they're high also keeps us from getting a lot of brush fires down here too.
Well, yeah, certainly you need that, and they definitely didn't have that in Canada, and you got to look at the Pacific Northwest. I mean, California.
Yeah.
It's Brown Dwarf. If he's still in the chat, he's got those raging where he lives. I'm sure I see him talking about it, and it's just I can't believe that the fires they don't end.
Oh yeah,
out there. That's got to be terrible. Got to be terrible. And I talked to a friend who lives in Phoenix, Arizona. Used to be, you talk about that 90 degrees, but no humidity.
right.
I tell you what, it's starting to creep into Arizona, Las Vegas. Another thing, never was. Yeah, it could be 101 degrees in Vegas, huh?
I mean, we've been hitting heat indexes down here to 115. So it feels like you got to cut a piece of air out to breathe it. I mean, it's just horrible.
Yeah. Well, I must say though, when I got out of the house like last week with that smog or whatever, the pollution index was like, it's a danger. And I went outside, and I tell you what, Tex, you had to cut a hole in the air just to breathe.
Yeah.
And it was because of the pollution being sent from these fires, and that's I just pray for those people. That's got to be terrible. Now, of course, not too many people live in Canada. Canada's so vast. I mean, the entire country sits on top of the United States, right?
Right.
And the populace there is not even big, but
Yeah, it it has been zero fun. I will tell you that.
Well, it's been zero fun. Zero fun. This show was kind of fun. It was a great show. I was, again, not getting into the issues.
Always have a blast talking to Ron. Always.
Yeah, he's a great guy. I can't wait to have him back. He gave us his hour. He gave us so much information in an hour. My head is still spinning. So for those of you that just came on later after the first hour, go back and watch the replay because Ron Murphy, the Cryptid Guru, great show. He had a lot of great information. And the thing I like about Ron Murphy is it always makes you think. It's always different. It's not the same. And it just makes you think and then it gives you and I, Tex, fuel to ask them questions and learn. And that's what I love most about having great guests like that. And you learn a lot in the short amount of time that we did have them for today.
And I'll tell you what, what's I know we just got a few minutes here, but I'm really rethinking a lot of stuff that I've, had strong opinions about the last few years about all these different phenomena. And it's like starting all back over. It really is, And I think a lot of people will go, well, you used to say this. Well, no shit, but if you can't change and evolve as you learn, you're defeating the purpose of even really doing these shows,
No, I think that's a great point. If I kept saying the same things over and over and had the same beliefs over and over, and I've not been doing this a long time, my opinions and views from learning changes every day. If you've been doing this, let's say I'm not even talking about podcasting or doing a YouTube show.
Right.
If you're a researcher, 30 years, 40, 50 years, but you still have the same beliefs 100%, you're not willing to open your mind and expand your thought process, then I really have no use for people like that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. And I think a lot of these older guys are changing it up a little bit. But for just a person that just says, hey, Bigfoot is an ape, right? I mean, I don't need to hear that anymore. I think we've kind of distinguished, that's just don't need to hear that.
Well, I think you need to be at least open to the possibility that there's something else going on.
Right.
I'll say it that way.
Because
if you're not, it's like what you're calling all these people experiencing different things liars, and they're not. They're having these experiences. Just because you haven't experienced them yourself doesn't mean they didn't.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
And I believe, and I think most of the people we talk to, most reports you get, I believe most of them.
Yeah.
The only thing that you might put in question is maybe it wasn't something that you thought it was, misidentification or something else.
Right.
And we talked with Ron earlier about, the tulpas and manifesting things we want to see, but it's something
Right.
else. And these energies can pick up on that, and they can sway your conscious mind. And I think that's
Yes.
probably
The experiences that I've had out in the field, as far as I'm concerned, prove that. Things going on and people are having different experiences and they're right next to each other. It's just, but it also makes it hard to pick out anything definitive.
Yep, I agree there. So, Tex, let's see, you got Monday, so you got it's Thursday or Wednesday. We've got who's on Wednesday? Oh, yes, everybody. Wednesday, 12 o'clock. Needs check out Danielle Diva, the Diva Dimension. She debuted last Wednesday. Fantastic show. Go check her out. It is on Texas Front Porch. I'll be back with Krista this Thursday at 1. My guest is undetermined. And then Monday, we're coming back with Tex. I don't know. Who do you got next Monday, Tex?
I've got Nick Valenti on.
Nick's on Monday.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday on this show, I've got Jesus Pan from Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And
Gonzo.
Breaking Bigfoot is his channel. So that'll be a cool show. He's a really energetic guy. I got to go watch an episode of Breaking Bad because I have to say this, Tex. Never seen a single episode. And I know most of America has watched that show.
It's a good show. It's a good show.
So anyway, that's a good way to close it. Don't forget to subscribe, Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot Mission Rob, the Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast, Bob Van Buren. World Bigfoot Radio's out there. Subscribe to Duke. And of course, who am I missing? Jason McLean questions everything. Again, no live shows from Jason, but he puts out great content. You know how Jason, he's always questioning. He's a questioner. Check out his videos. They're on his channel on YouTube. With that being said,
I'll tell you what, an up and comer really is Midwest Night Watchers. Go check them out because
check them out.
Definitely go subscribe to them. They got a lot of cool stuff going.
There's a lot of cool little upstarts that I do watch, and there's so many Texas, and there a lot of them are subscribers to us, and I appreciate what they're doing, and even the big boys out there, like Mr. Duke out there. Thanks to everybody. I'm going to find the exit button. Thank you, Tex, once again. Great show. Anybody? We had Ron Murphy catch the first hour at least. He had to leave early, but again, fantastic show. Love you, Tex. Thanks for coming on in. Thank you once again, Sugar Britches, and Be Kind for your super chats. And once again, please like, share, subscribe to all our channels across the board. Until next time, for Tex, it's BMR, and we're out.